that they had, but that dream was connected to a feeling they had in the past that they had buried, would
Mm.
be one example. Then that buried feeling of well, someone might have done something horrible to you in the past, and that created a trauma, and then that hurt you, created a trauma, but you buried it because you liked that person, for example. And then later on down the road, something triggered you deep down inside. And you might it might come out in the sense of like as I mentioned in a dream, you might wake up in a nightmare. Um and then it might take some work to understand, but that kind of thing may also come up, but you won't notice it. It won't be a nightmare. It's something that you just won't notice unless you're doing mindfulness practice where you're getting those insights to say, "Oh, okay, I see it now. I see it come up for me."
I'm
And it's through those insights that you can then start to understand.
mhm. If I do understand what you're saying that I could reach for that record thinking I really want to hear Beethoven's Fifth,
Yes.
and you're saying that's not why I'm reaching for it. It's because I had some past life trauma
It
that
could be.
triggered me
Yeah,
reaching for Beethoven to
it
mask
could
hurt.
be. Yes. Because
Okay.
that's what, exactly, because you're trying to escape.
So just about everything I do that is pleasure seeking is really a disguise for trying to mask some hurt.
Possibly, yes. You're trying to escape. You're always trying to escape. We are in an uncomfortable bodies, and we're in this uncomfortable world. So you're constantly trying to escape that uncomfortable world,
Is there any
and you
time?
can't escape, and you so that and it's through the pleasure that because when how long does the pleasure of a chocolate bar last when you eat it?
Not very.
And then you go watch a movie for 2 hours, and then how quickly after you leave the theater does reality start to set back in,
So
right?
is there ever a time when I reach for something pleasurable just for the pleasure of it?
Not really.
Huh,
That's
wow.
why you need to do mindfulness to totally understand, because true happiness is release of suffering
Once
and
we've
gaining
ascended,
becoming
we
part of the path to enlightenment. If you want to become enlightened, then you need to reduce the suffering or remove the suffering, and that suffering is being able to recognize the insights of pleasure, because
okay.
that pleasure is all temporary, just to get by through
Mhm.
with the suffering.
Now, would that come to an end once we are achieving enlightenment or ascension
Yes.
or some level of vibration? We say, okay,
Yes.
we got rid of all that stuff that's causing the suffering.
Yes.
Ah,
When a person becomes enlightened, that's when the suffering ends. And that's when there's no need to go for pleasure.
okay. So
There's
some
no
of
need.
us are approaching that enlightenment stage and probably have moments where we might say we're in the fourth dimension of consciousness or some enlightened vibratory area. And so for those moments, um, we may not need pleasure particularly, but we can still enjoy it. Um, but
Well,
then,
yes, there's nothing wrong with enjoying whatever it is that's there. I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's wrong. I'm
Mhm.
just saying the understanding here is you have to understand that there is no wrong and there is no right.
Mhm.
You have to toss that out the window. What you have to understand is that we are all constantly in this uncomfortable world, and that our minds are constantly trying to escape the uncomfortable world, and that there is this thing called pleasure, where we get pleasure with certain things, and that's where we do our escape. The important thing is to understand when that happens. That's all you have to do.
That's a
So
great.
there's nothing wrong with going to see a movie.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with, drinking coffee or enjoying the birds and the bees and all that kind of stuff, and having even sense pleasure and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Is should the key here is to notice it and to understand. That's
Mhm.
the key.
Well, I think you just summarized that really well just a minute ago, and I think I've captured that on the recordings here, and we'll try to portray that.
Mhm.
Um,
Sounds good.
yeah, thank you. This is certainly contributing to my movement towards enlightenment. I really appreciate it. I don't think
Welcome.
there's anything further from this end, and I think I got
No,
plenty. You've gone beyond my questions in many instances. So thank you very much. And,
thank you.
nice to meet you. Well, that's it, folks. That interview became one of 20 such interviews that appeared in my most recent book. The book also contains a section on channeling and the specific steps that I take to assist individuals to become channelers. The final section contains what I consider to be the top 10 messages that the beings are telling humanity at this time. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the interview and that you found it helpful in advancing your spiritual growth.